Hello, and welcome back. You notice how I went to 3 hellos? It feels weird. I don't know if I'm going to keep it. I think I'm going to go back to the 2. But today's video is going to be about Neil and Lucy. What I'm going to try to cover and hopefully do in about 30 minutes. I went 10 minutes over in the last video, so we'll see. I want to cover the statue and the background behind Neil. I want to cover his poster. I want to briefly talk about the story, the classic literature I think Neil relates to. I want to talk about his watch, how it might be a totem. I'm going to try to pin him down in the timeline, but we're going to see how far that gets us. If we're not too far, we may also talk about Tarman, Red Samurai, and hopefully get there. If we don't, we don't. I almost forgot. This will absolutely have spoilers for the gameplay previews that were shown. Now, what you consider a spoiler and what I consider a spoiler might be different. So let me just kind of tell you what I'm considering a spoiler. So for me, a spoiler is something that ruins the end of the game or that we have not been told through official channels. So for me, the clips, the gameplay previews, the trailers, that's all fair game. The official CD, music soundtracks, and listings that have to do with the merch, as well as Hideo's Instagram. To me, that has all been given to us. He is not embargoed it or anything. So you may get spoiled in terms of, I'm going to say where his boss battle takes place, as in what episode of the game that it takes place. So if that's something that you don't want to know, feel free to click away. I will tell you that as far as I'm aware, this is not going to ruin any in-game content because the gameplay previewers only got to watch or play episodes 1 through 6, the first 30 hours. And everything about the merch that's been released will just be theories I have about how it could relate. So if that's fine with you, then let's move forward. In the gameplay preview footage, we're actually able to see that we level up. And you can see that on the side where it's saying you can walk more, you can do this. One of the things it talks about is consuming memories in order to get skill points. Initially, when I heard consuming memories, because that was the word they used, I was assuming downloading, something like that. I'm not actually eating. But it made me think every single clip that we're seeing in the trailer has a blinking motion, which reminded me of BB's memories whenever it's looking at Cliff. Now, obviously, I don't think we're a BB. I think that we might be living a past memory, something from the chiral network. So that's what I think is happening. I actually think that we're living all these memories. I think the reason that Sam may be upset and may feel that he's been alone or that he's been strung along, things like that. I'm wondering if he's living these memories out of order, kind of like we are in the trailer. There were a lot of outraged people, me included, thinking, no, don't do this to the female character. Don't make her a cheater, anything like that, because that's just going to get her unnecessary hate. And I don't know, it just seems kind of like drama for the drama. But now that we have the last clip, we can kind of assume different things about the relationship. And I'm hoping that that's what we're seeing, that as we live these memories, we are getting probably Neil and Lucy's story out of order, and therefore Sam is going to be experiencing those emotions about someone he loved, and thinking certain things because that's how he is seeing and perceiving them, much like these trailers are so misleading and everyone has different thoughts on them. It'll be interesting to see what Sam feels. I know some have thought that this is going to be like a playable character, or that maybe even that the game is going to be played during Neil and Lucy's time and that Sam's parts will be kind of separate. I don't think so, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. As long as I get to see all of my characters, I don't mind how the game plays out. However, I truly think these are going to be memories because of the blinking, which we saw in the very first trailer. And I am wondering, will that be our introduction to memories? Will Sam watch that happen through a memory? Is that why we can see it and it's in the trailer and Sam isn't around? That would be very interesting. My caveat is I don't think that this particular scene is a memory. I actually think when Fragile is woken up and she's found by Sam or whoever in the bed, I think this is her retelling the story of what happened. Therefore, later she can say we never meant to, string you along or mislead you, because she is probably not telling the whole truth here. Obviously, I'm in the camp of I think Higgs saved her, or that maybe he's an ally, but something happened here that is not totally honest. And I don't necessarily think it's like going to make Fragile a bad person or anything. I just think that there's something going on behind the scenes that possibly was already known. Here's my big fear. I actually think that Fragile shows up because we know that she shows up. That's how we go on this whole game anyway. She shows up. She's like, hey, I need you to go hook up Dead Man's laboratory. Also, there's a BT headed that way. Can you take care of it? And he's like, yeah, sure. And while he's gone, just like with Lucy, something happens to his loved one and Lou dies, allegedly. I'm kind of thinking, did Higgs and Fragile plan this for some reason? Like, was there a reason for Higgs to need to take Lou? Is there something in game that we don't know about yet? Because there's a lot going on. So I'm open to a lot of possibilities for this specific scene. But I do think by the end that Higgs is an ally. I'm going to put a timestamp up. That is going to be for the next section of this video. I want to talk about a classic novel called For Whom the Bell Tolls. It is a classic novel, I think a classic American novel, and I read it forever ago, so forgive me if I'm rusty. I kind of looked up the summary again just to remind myself, but one of the things that struck me was the church in the background has a bell that's on fire. It looks kind of like it's ringing, but there are just different sayings about bells related to death, and a lot of times it means like death is approaching, death is near. If someone says like the bell tolls, then you are worried. Like it's not a good thing to hear this. Now in this classic novel, it's a little different. You have a young American who sees injustice across the Pacific, I think it is, and decides that he is going to go fight in the Spanish Civil War because he is aware that something terrible is happening and that he should help. And that's the call to action. And whenever that happens to someone and you hear that you should be helping fight injustice and you answer the call, it's called the bell tolls for you. It's calling you. It's ringing for you to come and help. And the whole point of that book is that we are all humans and we are all connected, and if something horrible is happening, you have to step up and stop it. You have to do your part. You have to answer the bell's toll. Now, when we look at Neil, all I can see is that character. Obviously, like it's a little not correct because it's the Spanish Civil War, not Mexico. He's not really doing guerrilla warfare. He's porting cargo, illegal cargo back and forth, but it almost feels too good to pass up. So I did want to mention that. I almost forgot. The whole reason that I even thought about it was that the guy is a dynamiter and he is tasked with blowing up the bridge. That's his job, to blow up the bridge. But that's what I remember about it. It was all about being connected as humans. And I mean, that's the theme of this game. Should we have connected? So I almost feel like it would be just remiss of me to not mention it here. And I just wanted to include that. Next point of business. He has the watch on in the nightmare realm. He does not have it in these flashback memories that we've seen so far. I did try to go back and look. If you have seen the watch in a trailer of Neil that is not the nightmare realm, tell me so I can go find it. But basically, totems are ways that people can travel back and forth to the beach. You have to have a strong connection. And if you can get something to the beach, that's a special thing. We have the Kipu, we have the dream catcher, we have there's some other ones. Fragile's umbrella, sort of. I think that counts. She's also got her bracelet. And then we have a whole thing with the novelist's son about the gourds and that he kind of felt like he traveled somewhere. And then the spiritualist also felt like she traveled somewhere. So we have these different totems, and basically it's just these totems hold power because they have memories and they have these special connections. Now I'm wondering, is the watch with him in the nightmare realm because it was special, maybe given to him by someone, or is it simply because he was wearing it and his full body went to wherever this place is? So that is something I have questions about. Obviously we know it's a brand tie-in, in real life, but for the game there should be a lore reason that he has it. So if you have an idea on why he might have that watch, other than just he has a watch, I just thought it was weird he's not wearing it in this clip. Next up, let's talk about the newly released posters. I edited his a little bit because I was struggling to figure out what was going on in his poster. The bottom seemed like it had something strange, like an orb. It had a lot of lighting and just things that were just odd that I couldn't tell. So I got on Discord. There's a Discord called Bridges 3. I think you could probably search for it on the Discord channels. And it's just like a small group of people who play together. But anyway, I got invited there from a theory thing. And someone on there, Cade, was helping me kind of look at this image and figure out what it was. Now, what they figured out that I couldn't recognize from this angle is that he is on a motorcycle. And then another user, one on Twitter, I think it was Rossaroni, helped me figure out that I think there is actually a BB under his arm. So let's zoom in on that. Now, here's what I can tell. It looks like he is riding a motorcycle. At first, there were a lot of things that went through my mind, but my friend Kate and I were able to kind of decipher that this is a motorcycle front that's rounded, like a rounded windshield. And the silver is actually the front of the trike, and then you can kind of see the rubber handles that you would be gripping onto. Now, at first I thought that he had some sort of weird orange thing, but that is actually under his arm, and it was kind of weird to look at first, but that's his shoulder gripping the other handle, and that red or bright yellow spot I think is an explosion that he is driving away from. There's also kind of an odd symbol in the background. There's almost like a circle in the top right, and I'm thinking that is maybe a building that we don't recognize yet. At first glance, we have kind of a busted motorcycle windshield, and I think that is purposeful to mislead us and kind of hide something from us. One of the things that Rossaroni pointed out is that I think you can actually see a baby or a BB doll. It's really hard to tell what it is, or if it's a BB pod. It's really curious. So I'll zoom in for you, but don't be disappointed if you can't see it that well, because it really is a hard thing to see. So at first I thought that it was the doll, and I thought that was a baby's head, but now I can see I think it's an actual BB pod. That's kind of odd. So which BB is that, I wonder? Possibly BB-28, who doesn't appear to die very easily, since Deadman says, it was supposed to be disposed of, and it seems like it's reappeared or come back. I kind of think maybe this is related to Tomorrow. I'm really torn between, is Tomorrow going to end up being Neil's child? I was really hoping that Neil would be Higgs's dad, or a dad to someone, but more and more it's seeming like Neil is just going to be a character who's there to kind of misdirect us, and that he will not actually have a child. But I don't know, I'm thinking there's a song on the new Death Stranding track called Any Kind of Love, and it's just making me think, is this going to be about all the different ways that you can love someone, you know, as a family member, as a best friend, as a child, as a lover, all these different things? Will he represent like a different sort of love that you can have? Now, this part in the top right, I can't figure it out. I don't really understand what it's supposed to be. It doesn't really look like anything that we've seen. I thought maybe it's a window. I thought at first maybe it was the omelet effigy, but it doesn't match that shape and it just looks strange. So if there's something that you can think of or remember, a building maybe that has that shape, the way that we're looking at it, I mean, it looks like it's in the sky, because I'm assuming that the really bright orange spot on the poster is like a faraway explosion like we saw earlier when he's like looking out the window and he sees something kind of catch on fire. Speaking of the window, there's something strange about it. So it looks like the building is on fire when you look outside. However, something that I noticed when I was viewing this again is I actually think the fire is in the room with him. I think the fire is part of his reflection. I don't think it's outside. And when you darken it, here's what I will say. It looks like a woman, a bald woman, with a BB in their hand, running maybe in a door behind him. Now, not to put images in your mind, but that looks like a BB pod to me. It's kind of like head, torso, like maybe a shirt, a V-neck that is kind of hidden by a doorway, and then a hand. That's what I'm seeing. Like someone is running in the door behind him to give him this, I guess, BB. And then that would make sense if we see a fire behind him and he has the BB under his arm. Here is where I think the BB pod is on the left, and there is where I think the explosion is on the right. Now, Lucy's poster has a lot less to look at, mostly because I think it's from a scene we've already seen. I think it's from her therapy sessions with Neil, so I'm not necessarily finding any new information in this poster. Now, when we move it down, we can finally see her ID, which doesn't have her name on it, unfortunately, but that was something we couldn't see before in the screen capture footage. Now, I'm looking at her outfit. I'm looking at what is under her lab coat, which is a darker sort of V. And I'm wondering, is she the person that we're seeing with the pod in that poster? Does she bring Neil a BB pod and he drives off with it? Is that what happens here? Is it her baby? Is it Louise? Is that how this void out happens with the BB while Sam is away? Does Lucy try to make a run for it, give the BB pod to Neil, and then get voided out, allegedly, by Bridget and Amelie? Or is this baby different from the baby that she's carrying? That's something that we really don't know yet, because we do know that she was pregnant, but in the world of Death Stranding, you could be pregnant and have your baby in a pod, as we've seen with a doctor who can put her hands through objects. And the other thing that I'd like to discuss briefly is kind of sexuality in Death Stranding, and it won't be too graphic, but I want to talk about what I think could be happening that would be a crazy twist. In Death Stranding, we know that having babies is not the most common thing. They talk about how the fertility rates have declined, how people aren't really having babies, and we've spoken about this before on the channel, but if you're scared for your life, you're not necessarily going to be wanting to, raise the population. That's not always something that you're thinking about, because for humans, the sex drive, it's food, sex, unless you are in, I'm sorry, I think it's, for humans, it's sex, food, because like procreation is what we want to do. And that's kind of like how we make sure the population stays. But that sort of changes whenever you are in survival mode, and it'll go to food, sex, because you are now worried about the survival of the human, not the, procreation. So that's just something that happens normally in biology, in animals, everybody. Now, what I'm thinking about is we already know that that's an issue. We know that Sam has an issue with touch. We know that people are not having children and that it's just a problem. And the other thing is that people are not connecting. They're having to take drugs like oxytocin in order to feel better and to kind of interact with each other. So on that note, I'm curious. We, as far as I'm aware, never hear, if they have consummated their marriage, as in, did they actually have a baby the old-fashioned way? Or since still mothers and technology like that are a thing, could they have done IVF? And the only reason I bring this up is because that would be a really different take on having a baby in a video game, because if that's the case, there is wiggle room for Sam to believe a child is his when it is not. There's also room for Neil to think that a baby is his and it not be. And so Hideo could really play with that misdirection and misleading information if it's something like that, where we know that in Death Stranding 1, we deliver sperm and egg to different facilities, and that's literally what the cargo is called. So I don't know. I always assumed we were delivering that so they could make more bridge babies or something weird like that. But it's possible they were delivering sperm and egg because people are just not having babies and they're trying to repopulate, or maybe there is more IVF going on than we know. If there's chiralium in the air and it's really heavy, that causes cancer. It's similar to radiation. So it's totally possible that people are just not healthy enough to have babies. And it's totally possible that people, their sperm count is low or the eggs aren't being able to be fertilized. So I could totally see IVF being a thing in Death Stranding 2 that we learn about, that was maybe being utilized in order to try to up the population. But for someone like Sam, who's totally against touching, connecting, and we know that he did get better with Lucy and he was connecting, that could be what happened. It could be an IVF situation where he is able to have a baby and feel connected to it and close and still have that relationship without maybe having to trigger his phobia. That was hard to say. So that's an option. Just consider that Louise could absolutely still be his daughter and be in that pod. We have seen with Rainey, which I'm not even going to get into. I have so much to say about Rainey, but we've basically seen that I think it's confirmed that her baby was taken out of her stomach and put in a pod. So I think it's totally possible. So I'm just going to leave you with that. You'll have to let me know what your thoughts are on that. But I think it could be very likely that due to his phobia, they, had the baby kind of through IVF or a kind of a laboratory type thing. And that's why you have kind of this baby scans that Neil sees. Maybe Lucy is telling him, I'm having a baby, and then Neil says something and she's just like, this was a mistake. I'm thinking maybe she says this is a mistake because she shouldn't have told Neil about her relationship. That would be unprofessional. Now, on that same point, if she knows that something is going to happen to her, we know that she allegedly dies in a void out because she allegedly commits suicide after having nightmares that she gets because her baby has dooms, which will be sent to her by Amelie. It's totally possible that that is a thing. And that she maybe gives her baby to Neil and says, I need you to take it and run away. And maybe that's what happens. So anyway, that's what I think. There's a little bit of a timeline that I'd like to talk about. I'm going to talk about it in the next video, but I have changed my mind on Lucy. I think this is Sam's Lucy now. I feel like we can confirm the timeline and that this is not in 2019 like I thought it was, meaning Neil is coming after Cliff, and that this is occurring during the time that Sam would likely be working kind of as a general position at Bridges. And I'm excited to talk about the timeline. I am going to go ahead and stop here, break this video up a little bit so they're not so long. I totally want to shout out Gamer's Little Playground because that is where we got the wonderful 4K footage from Death Stranding 1 that's been in the background of some of these clips. Let me know your thoughts. Is there anything here that you think could be correct, that you agree with? If you disagree, you know, let me know timestamps. Let me know your reasoning. It'd be really good to have, you know, other thoughts, other people's opinions. But if you can back it up with something from the game, that'd be awesome. That way we can kind of research this and maybe figure it out. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.